Okay, so today we are going to begin, instead of doing presentations at the beginning of class, we are going to begin with our listening practice. So you guys will pair up. You can just pair up with the person next to you at a desk or find someone. If you don't have anybody, let me know. And we will be practicing listening. The topics that you guys can choose to talk about are varied, but I'd like you all to risk bringing something up of substance. That doesn't mean that it has to be the deepest parts of your heart or the most unacceptable aspects of your personhood or the things that we're most afraid to share. But today we will be covering, in the lecture later on, we'll be covering shame. We'll be talking about shame. So one of the questions at the end for reflection of the book here is we continue looking at honoring resistance. Tiber says, if I start feeling bad, worthless, inadequate, or one of these shame-based feelings, what is most likely to have triggered this reaction? When my partner is not meeting my needs, when I feel vulnerable or criticized, etc. When this shame-based feeling is evoked in me, my initial response is to what? Withdraw, eat, drink, become pleasing, lose my temper, etc. So I'm not saying that you have to talk about, kind of go into the depths of your shame. It could be talking about anger. It could be talking about sadness. But I'd like you to share a little bit about your experience or something that's difficult or stressful. And the goal of the listener is to do that. To listen. Really what I want you guys to be focused on today is open-ended questions and reflections. Open-ended questions and reflections. Asking a question, what's it like when you experience that? Right? Not, was it hard? That's a yes or no question. We want to ask an open-ended question that can't be answered with yes or no. And in a very realistic way, who here is going to have some resistance or ambivalence about sharing difficult emotions with your classmates? Yeah, right. So what's the whole topic of this chapter? Honoring resistance, right? And we talk about today shame fuels resistance. This is not an opportunity to practice trying to crack the puzzle or trying to crack the code or trying to get through and kind of break the resistance. But when you notice that somebody might be talking about something that's sensitive, I want to invite you guys to explore, right? What would happen if you shared this with me? What's it like for you to share this as we're talking right now? What's scary about practicing this exercise? And again, the beauty of the process is that we can actually honor wherever somebody's at. We don't have to do a deep dive and have this agenda of going somewhere. We can just say, hey, what's here? Identify it, and then explore it. So we'll do 15 minutes, and then we'll do 15 minutes, and then we'll switch. Does anybody have any questions? I'll be walking around, and I'll be kind of tuning in a little bit. Yes? And again, the goal of the listener is really fundamentally to understand, right? So the kind of exploring resistance, that's kind of that's more secondarily. It's kind of something to keep in the back of your mind. But the skills that I really, really want you to be honing in on and practicing today is asking open-ended questions and then just reflecting what you're hearing. Cool? You're not trying to therapize each other. You're not trying to break through. You're not trying to be invasive, which is very, very important. This is not about being invasive. It's about asking somebody about their experience, listening, reflecting it back, attending to maybe difficulties in reflecting it. Cool? Okay. So if you guys have someone at your table, you can pair up. If you don't have someone at your table, find someone with a single table. And if there's any stragglers, let me know, and we can attend to that. But Yeah, we'll begin now. Yeah. Okay, folks. How was that for you all? Comments, concerns. It's challenging, right? It's really, really hard to do an exercise like that where we're listening, and listening is something that seems so like, I can do that. I can listen. And then we do an exercise like this, and what we really realize that we're really good at is saying what we think and what we want to think and the way we think. And what we're not very good at is actually taking that participant observer stance, stepping back, and really investing in saying, like, what's the important thing that's happening here? What's the value? Can I really just listen? I think part of what's threatening for us to do that, especially for you guys to do that right now, is what we talked about in the beginning, is it takes the risk of personal involvement, right? You're risking being in a real relationship. When you ask a question like, wow, what would it be like for you to open up here to me, to one of your classmates? It's like, oh shit. Like, now we're actually talking about something real. Like, this is actually something serious. It's interesting, right? That's such a simple question. What would it be like for you to open up to me? It makes things so immediate. Like, it makes them so hot. It makes them so real. It makes them so, not pressured, but it brings an immediacy. Like, nothing makes you live in the moment like somebody saying, like, what would it be like if we went there, if we talked about the thing that you're scared to talk about right now? We're not saying you have to talk about it. We're saying, what would it be like? The key with resistance is that we're not trying to understand why somebody, when we're exploring resistance, we're wanting to understand what the resistance is about. But when they're resistant to talk about resistance, we're not trying to force them to tell us why are they late or why do they not want to open up about it. What we want to explore is, why is it threatening to talk about that? Why is it threatening to talk about your difficulty opening up? Why is it threatening to talk about maybe feeling nervous about therapy? And that's far more important than kind of, we don't want to just plow in and force people to talk to us. So yeah, any comments, reflections? Nick, I know that there's another one from this side of the room too. Yeah, Nick.
You guys want to go ahead first? Okay, well, I just thought it was super interesting how during talking with Becca, and then like reflecting back on you talking with Reagan, I thought the differences were just like drastic. Because like seeing you do that with Reagan was obviously moving, and I thought you checked off every single box when you said anything to Reagan. And just feel like sometimes I found myself struggling to say what I wanted to say to Becca, and while still making her feel like she's being heard.
Uh-huh.
And I just like seeing the comparison between me and you, like with you with experience.
Yeah.
Here, it's like, wow, I'm not nowhere close. I thought watching you, I was like, oh, this won't be that. I'll do it. I'll be able to.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fine with this. But then actually getting into it, it's like, this is tough. This is really tough to actually perform.
It is. And I want you to know that the difference between me and you here is 4 years. You know, I've just practiced, right? I was in the same exact spot that you guys have been in these same, not these classrooms, because this was Damon's, and they had the best happy hour ever. But up there, like I've, you know, I remember pretty keenly myself doing these exercises for the first time and being like, I suck at this. You know, like, this is really hard. It's a skill. It's a skill that we learn. So stick to it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. And I found it, like, what I found most challenging was to not be like, I get it. Yeah, I feel ya. Like, I totally understand. Because I remember in the chapter, it was really shocking to me when I saw, like, those aren't the kind of comments you really want to be making.
Yeah.
So, like, it was hard not to just, in my mind, like, project, myself onto these issues and how I would handle them. So, like, I kept finding myself trying to control and steer stuff. Yeah. Instead of just, like you said, just being present and just listen.
Yeah.
So it was really hard.
Yeah.
It was also just hard to, like, to not be, like, a friend. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because, like, well, they did it. I don't know, like, the rest of you. But it was just kind of like she was saying, it's hard to not just get into, like, because when you're, like, your friends are talking to you about things, you always just want to be like, like, yeah, I understand, I get it. But, like, you kind of have to, like, shift your perspective on it.
Yeah.
But doing that with someone like, maybe this was just like an isolated like opportunity for this, but it was just like hard to kind of like switch gears
Yeah.
and like actually like think the way that
Yeah.
a therapist would, which is like a lot more difficult than I was anticipating. But
And it can beg a really important question, which is like, how much intimacy do I really experience in my relationships? You know, when we start exploring, we start going kind of beneath the surface, we start going a little bit deeper, all of a sudden we can realize, wow, why can't I talk this way to everybody all the time? You know, and that doesn't mean that we're therapizing people all the time or we're trying to get somewhere. But yeah, why would it be so difficult if I was in a conversation with someone to just say like, you know, to be honest, I don't really want to talk about this. Or to say to someone, you know, this conversation feels a little bit abrasive to me. And I'm not sure I love the direction it's going. Can we just like talk about the interaction we're having because it's pushing me away a little bit. Or to actually tune in and say like, wow, there's so much shame in the room right now. It feels like a tsunami hit and then just a vacuum that extinguished everything. One of the greatest challenges as a therapist can be allowing our clients to suffer in front of us. We think that our role is to eliminate their suffering or to get rid of it, and it's not. We can't do that. But what we can provide is connection. And that's ultimately what humanity, what creation is about, is connection. And so it's so important for us to tolerate and allow people to be in their suffering rather than trying to whisk them away to reassurance, rather than trying to whisk them away to problem solving, rather than trying to pull them away to, well, let's just pretend like nothing just happened and let's pretend like we didn't really just have this conversation and let's just kind of like keep going, you know? Yeah.
I think that's an interesting point you brought up because being able to be in your, what's the word that you said, like being in their
Shame.
Yes. Most of the growth that people are missing is like from themselves. Like they honestly have all the facilities they need to resolve the things. Just a matter of like you said, just talking it out.
Yes.
They'll be able to realize that the problems that they're facing are able to be solved by them and not something else.
Yeah, and what can happen most of the time when we have difficult feelings, right? We're feeling shamed. Oh, don't feel that way. I feel like a POS. Like I just feel like I'm no good. I feel like I suck. Don't feel that way. You're great. You're a great guy. But that's the way we interact all the time. That's the way that we're used to people interacting with us, instead of somebody saying like, oh my gosh, my man, like, you know, I admire you so much. I want you to know that first of all, but I feel really sad to hear that like you feel so lowly about yourself. Can we go there? Can we be in that together? That is validating. Because you shouldn't feel that way is useless. I'm feeling that way, so now you're saying I shouldn't be the way that I should, and now my shame is just like level 2, you know? Other thoughts, reflections, experiences. Yeah.
I really connected with like the feeling of therapist like inadequacy, like that. Because like I'm reading, I was like, yeah, like I won't feel that way. But then like listening and like trying to reflect back what he's saying, and then like sometimes you feel like you're going down a wrong hole, but like you've gone too far, you're not sure how to like jump back. It's like in your mind.
Yes.
Think about this other thing is like, oh, that could have been really important, but then you're like, how do I get back there?
Yeah.
As well as like when I was reflecting, it's very hard not to just like say like, you know, just like blunt statements, because like with my friends, it's like we kind of value bluntness almost.
Yeah.
When someone says something, you can pretty openly just like, hey bro, you're just like really being an idiot right now.
Yeah.
It's like you can't really say that in these. But you also like also have trouble with like the reflecting, because it's like sometimes it's so similar. I felt like I was almost beating a dead horse by like reflecting it back again and again and again.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, is that because I'm doing something wrong, or
Yeah. You might be surprised at how blunt you can be. I think a lot of people might find it refreshing. Because if that's something that you experience yourself and the culture of your friends have, there are probably areas of it that can be problematic bluntness, but there's also a great healing to bluntness, right? And so your role as a person, right, is to say like, okay, this is kind of the personal culture that I hold for myself and I hold with the people that I love. How can I learn to not put this outside my office, but I can actually bring it in to my office, and so that I can be blunt with people, but I can know what does it mean for me to be blunt with people in a way that they can receive it and feel loved. And when that bluntness pushes some people away, I can clarify that I'm sorry that I was a little bit blunt there. That's true. Sometimes I can do that. I'm sorry. I'll try to be more tender next time. But what was striking, and we can attend to that. So, secondly, when we get caught up in our heads, trying to figure out where we're going, take a big deep breath and come back to the present moment. Right? You can always begin again right where we are and explore. You can ask your clients, like, hey, there's so much going on here. I'm feeling a little bit lost. I'm wondering how it's feeling for you to be here right now. Because maybe you're feeling confused, but maybe you're experiencing the confusion of that dyad right now. And so we name it and we explore it. Yeah. Yes.
So like, I hope I can formulate this properly. But like a challenge that I realized like might happen during therapy sessions, and I guess it's kind of like a question too. How do you keep track of like all the side stories and just like the stories that you hear while trying to like understand the context of like an issue,
Yeah.
while still understanding like the central meaning of everything, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I don't keep track of the side stories. If I forget something, I ask. If I didn't remember hearing something, I ask. If somebody says that, right, they were abused by someone in their family, but was it an uncle, was it a dad, was it a brother? It's a hard thing to say, right? But to say, you know what, I know this is so important. And when we talked about it a little while ago, I know there was a lot of intensity of emotion. Can you remind me, like, what happened? Who was it? Like, what happened to you? I know it was someone in your family. You ask, right? We don't need to be perfect. We need to show up. And we need to be okay with our humanity. When we are okay with our humanity, we give our clients the permission to be the same. How can our clients let go of their own perfectionism if we maintain our own? So if you track the themes, the side stories will fit in place. So if you don't have to remember them, but you will, if you can track the themes. If you can remember, okay, this person's tendency is to move away from people, there will be certain vignettes, certain stories that are like, okay, that's a core part of that, and those will stick out. And there will be other kind of like side stories of that either reinforce it or just kind of build on it. But if you remember the core theme, if you remember the core theme and you can be in the present moment, you don't have to remember it all. You really don't. Yeah. Any other last thoughts, questions? Yeah, John Paul.
There's only a similar question that it's like, what if between weeks and between years, how do you keep track of like people's main issues and their and like important details? Like, do you like write them down?
Yeah, so you take notes.
Before you start your therapy session, just like to refresh. Like,
Yeah. I think it's a stylistic thing. So I think there's different strokes for different folks. I personally don't. Sometimes I will, but I write a note after the session. My sessions run about 50 minutes, and I'm pretty tight on that. And I write the note in between that 50 and 0 minutes, so in those 10 minutes. And then supervision helps to track themes and situations that come up. But other than that, I'm pretty loyal to the present moment. Because I really believe that if you and I are in the present moment, we'll be where we need to be. Yeah. And I don't need to think to be in the present moment. In fact, thinking is one of the surest ways to get out of it. But if I can be in the present moment with somebody and then invite them into an exploration of what's here, things happen. And I can do that humbly, and I can do that compassionately. Things happen. Yeah. Yes.
I noticed that like a mistake I made was wanting to like provide a resolution.
Yeah.
Like that's not really what you're trying to do.
Right.
Like you're just trying to like surface the issue, I guess. But like after they like share it with you and you address it and like reflect your understanding of it, what if like the client doesn't have any more to say after that? Like what?
Process. But go ahead.
When a process comment comes in, like that point.
Process comments are throughout all, but keep going, because I cut you off, because I got excited.
Yeah, like, so I guess the client isn't usually looking for a resolution then.
Some are.
Okay.
Yeah, some are dead set on a resolution, and that's their very problem, is that everything in life has to come to a resolution.
Yeah. So would you not give them a resolution still? You would probably try to just, I don't know. I guess that's tricky.
Can I give them a resolution?
Not really.
Yeah, right. What can I do? I think this goes back to Nick's point, is that our clients, the people we work with, they have it all interiorly, but they don't have access to it. If somebody says a bunch of stuff and then they're kind of quiet, something else is going on, and you want to explore the interpersonal process. So I would say something like, "Wow, you just shared so much. Seemed like there was a lot in there, and I know it was valuable, but I'm just wondering, after you shared, I noticed a little bit of silence, and I'm just wondering, like, what's coming up for you here, having shared all that?" What might someone say? What might your response be?
Me?
Yeah.
Like to that?
Say you just shared a bunch, and then you were silent,
Yeah.
and I said to you, like, you just shared a lot.
Uh-huh.
What's it like for you to have just shared all that with me?
I just felt like uncertain about sharing all that information after. Like I felt afraid to share it.
Yeah, it felt uncertain. So you shared all this stuff, and then it sounds like you kind of stepped back and took a breath and were like, "Oh my gosh, what did I just do? I kind of can't go back from that now that I've shared it all." That's a pretty scary place to be. I'm really grateful that you've taken that risk with me. But I could also feel, as you were talking, I felt you kind of sharing so much. I'm wondering if it felt like you were pressured to have to share something, or I just wonder, like, what was happening for you as you were sharing all those things from me? Did it feel kind of comfortable and relaxed, or did it feel like something else was happening for you? You might share. You might say, like, "Well, I just need to tell you everything so you can solve my problem." Or it might be, "I was just so wrapped up in the emotion that I was just telling you everything that was going on." Or it might be, "Well, why are you asking me that? Here I'm in therapy. Like, you should know what I have to say and why I need to say it," right? So depending on the person, a different process will emerge there.
It just came to me when you were like talking about like asking how they felt. Like, how did you apply to, especially guys, I'd say over than girls, like who don't really know or aren't great at expressing emotion? How do you get that to come out of them?
Artfully. There's a balance between meeting people where they're at and welcoming them into a different kind of dimension. I think one of the most helpful things for emotion is that this is something we do not get taught, but your emotions show up in your body. Normally, someone will say, "Oh, I'm sad." We'll say, like, "Oh, how do you know that?" We'll be like, "What the hell are you talking about? I'm sad. I just know I'm sad because I'm sad. That's why." Right? We just go into this circular reasoning. And so we don't get taught how to notice when we're sad. But the reality is that, wow, I feel sadness. My whole body feels heavy. Right? I feel like there is just a lump in my throat. That would probably be a little bit more dread. Right? But and people experience these things differently. So the body is your friend. And so help people connect to their bodies. You also want to, there's multiple reasons, right? Part of it could be fear, that a guy wouldn't want to share emotions, right? Oh, well, I don't really want to share emotions just because it's not very masculine, right? Oh, yeah, what would happen, right? So we can identify that there's kind of a stigma, there's a bias against men crying, right? It's like, well, yeah, what do you think I might say or think if you cried? Oh, well, you probably think I was soft, right? Or you'd probably judge me. Even if you wouldn't say that, you probably would. I think with it's important that when we're relating to men, it's client specificity. But I think men especially can really enjoy and benefit from a certain bluntness. We shouldn't try, as men, I'm saying this as man, we shouldn't try to be women to relate to men's emotions. We should just explore with them of like, oh yeah, what's going on? Dude, you're pissed. It seems like whenever you're pissed, the only thing to do is to hit something, to throw something. Does that feel good? No, it feels awful. I hate it. I feel out of control. And what's it like for you after? Afterwards, I feel terrible. I feel like I just undid all the work that I've been doing with my wife. I feel like I just disintegrated it right there by losing my temper. Like, what a loss, right? So we can, the biggest thing is that we need to learn to navigate our own climate, culture, and area of emotions ourselves. But I think one of the biggest things is the body. The body's your friend. Connecting people to sensation in their body is a great resource. Yeah. Other questions and experiences from the exercise? Yes.
Are you able to tell if you had like a good session or not? Like in a bit, like after 50 minutes, like, yo, 50 minutes is done. Like, do you just like call it there? Or it's like
Yeah. So I don't set out to have good sessions. Because we don't know what a good session is going to be, right? And again, I set out to be in the moment with whatever's there. Because a session where we talk about how somebody hates therapy and they're not getting very far, how do you know if that's a good session or not? Right? How can you evaluate that? If we believe that, good sessions are when clients walk away feeling good and bad sessions are when clients walk away feeling bad, we are going to alter our interventions not based on what the client needs in the here and now, but based on our belief about what will be a good session, right? So I think maybe a better question to monitor that was I really present to what was happening in the room with the client? Was I effectively able to show that? Was the client able to feel that I was on a team with them? Yeah. We want to be careful, I think. It's really tempting to be like, oh man, like that was a good session, right? Because the other thing that does is who's going to feel that the most? Maybe. Clients will pick up on that really keenly. And what they'll experience is a pressure to perform. You'll hear clients all the time being like, well, I just got to make the most out of this time. You're expensive. Like, I can't just sit here and talk about us the whole time. Right? So that right there is an interpersonal process where they're moving against you and blaming you, right? When you kind of have this pressure of like, is it a good session or not, clients will already come into therapy with this expectation. Was it a good session or was it a bad session? They will want to judge, they will want to evaluate, they will want to critique it, they'll want to put it on some value ladder. And that's, for those people, that's part of the issue for why they're coming to therapy, is because they have a constant internal critic that tells them, am I going in the right direction or am I going in the wrong direction? And because of this constant internal monitoring, they're not able to actually be present to what's happening in the here and now. Yeah. So I just try not to think that way. I don't really much anymore. I try to be pretty non-judgmental of the sessions, and I show up and I do what I can, and I reflect on what went well, what I was able to do well, what I was able to do less effectively, and then I show up next week. Yeah. And that, I think, is also what protects us, because guess what? You're going to have some times where it feels like all you have is bad sessions if you judge them that way. And you'll burn out quicker than, I don't know, a short candle, a firecracker on 4th of July, something else that will burn out quickly. Because you will be at the mercy of kind of how the sessions turn out emotionally, and it'll wreck you as a therapist. Yeah, so we need to kind of maintain a distance between our evaluation of our own efficacy. Yeah. Any last questions?